Hi, everybody, and welcome to Creativity Reframed. For those of you that have followed this series, you will know that it's a very personal and passion project for me to explore with a variety of really interesting people across the globe what the role of creativity and problem solving is through crisis. And that's particularly important because, unfortunately, as we now all know, we're moving into a second lockdown. So that ability to be resilient and dig deep, find innovation and new solutions has actually never been more important. I thought that this series would probably only last for 6 months, but here we are. Joining me today, we have a wonderful lady who's a friend of mine and a fellow Wackler. I have got the marvellous Liz Jones joining me today. Liz is the founder of Conker, and they are a brilliant talent company who specialise in executive search. Lovely to have you with me today, Liz. Delighted that you're able to join me and to kind of share your sage and wonderful insights. So first question, which I always ask everybody, is how the hell are you coping, both personally and professionally, through the ongoing challenges that we're facing into?
I think that's something we've all reflected on, especially recently, because we're now about to sort of go into the more stringent
Yeah.
restrictions. And I am finding myself actually feeling anxious. And I had huge anxiety in the beginning, which was obviously all things. It was friends and family and the impact on the wider world, but also selfishly it was my business. And then I kind of got over that when I realised that you can only control the controllables. Then throughout months that came, I took some comfort in, and it was very humbling speaking to a lot of people that found themselves out of work. And I
Yeah.
didn't have groups to talk to them about, but you realise that just by being empathetic, listening, perhaps giving people some sort of a framework or some ideas as to how they could frame their job search going forward was incredibly powerful and really positive, and you realize that you had made a difference to people,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't the outcome that they would ideally looking for. I think on the whole okay, but I think it's taught us all about what are the important things in life, and that is the connectivity with people and what you can give to somebody through that.
What kind of techniques have you used yourself, Liz, through this process? You've touched there on some of the more human elements, but I guess in terms of creativity, problem solving, trying to think about new ways to do things, has there been anything in that space that you've been able to do for your own business?
So going back to personally, I've definitely realised that getting out to take some exercise or just have a walk in the fresh air is really important. We are not working from home like we were on a Friday. We are living with work, and the blend of work and home is really challenging, I think, especially when you've got family around
Yeah.
you. So for me, it's making sure that I have moments in the day that are about my family, and I will shut the laptop and walk away,
Yeah.
even if I then pick up later on. So it's creating some boundaries, and it's taking some exercise and getting some fresh air, because
Sure.
otherwise it just all became far too blended.
Yeah.
And in terms of creativity, we have done some work as Conquer during our quieter months to think about the business. I found that quite challenging. I really miss that in the room, bouncing ideas off somebody, maybe scribbling some stuff. So when you're trying to be more creative and strategic, I think certain people find it more difficult to do that virtually. And then actually try and turn all of these negatives and use the technology to drive the creativity and the thinking in any way you can. So we, during this time, have come up with different models, different ways of working, and we've realised that having been people who are in the office 4 or 5 days a week, all day, we can conduct our business virtually. We can talk to people, we can conduct searches, and people have joined businesses without physically meeting. I've managed to pivot and be more creative in both our ways of working and our model, and that includes our financial models, as well as how we work with one another.
And obviously, Liz, the area that you operate in is the communications and advertising industry. If we kind of look at COVID through the perspective of brand, and just even from a personal point of view, have you been kind of watching brands that have been doing things in a way that's quite positive through COVID? Because I think it's been a really interesting space to evolve, hasn't it, in terms of some brands really getting it right, some
Yeah.
spectacularly getting it wrong. Just kind of really interested to get your thoughts on what you've seen.
Talking about this with a friend on a walk this week, because I think we're all reappraising brands and our relationship with them. And the ones that are finding connection are the ones that are showing more empathy with what is going on. Because I
Yeah.
think we're all reframing what we actually need and want versus what we perhaps would have done a year ago. And therefore, the brands that are talking to me in particular are the ones that are showing an awareness of what is going on right now. The more aspirational brands, perhaps, and products don't feel very connected to how we're all living or what we really need and what we take meaning from right now, because we're coming up towards Christmas. I know I just said the C word, but the perfume adverts of old, glamorous, slightly fantasy, just feels so out of kilter with my life and the world. That I would almost see them negatively, that does not resonate with me. Someone dancing in a fountain in a diaphanous nightie. The brands that are talking to me are either more practical things, because you're thinking about, well, what am I actually going to be needing in the coming weeks? It's probably a nice pair of pajamas and more leisure wear and a beanie and a duvet coat, so that I can actually talk to people outside who aren't in my family. So it's practical things, but it's also brands that have managed to reframe for now.
It's just been kind of cataclysmic, hasn't it, in terms of some brands. Obviously, some of the changes that John Lewis are making, I think they're not doing their traditional Christmas ad this year, which actually saddens me enormously, because that was always one of my most favourite things from a kind of advertising point of view. But I mean, it's symptomatic, isn't it, of just how thoughtful everyone's having to dig so deep, aren't they, in terms of what do we stand for, how do we add value, and all the rest of it. I saw some research which was actually, again, quite optimistic in the Edelman Trust Barometer that they run. They were talking about how, actually, bizarrely, pre-COVID, trust in brands was at an all-time low. But actually, some of the data they were seeing was that brands that were actually doing exactly what you're saying, Liz, which was behaving in the right way, adding really practical support and value to people, that almost trust was moving back into brands. I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that almost off the back of this and bouncing into, please God, 2021, I think some brands will perhaps have even got themselves into a better place, not from a disingenuous way, but just by behaving in the right way, they've actually jettisoned themselves and beyond some of those brands that we might have expected more from.
I think this has been a real moment for people to look at how they live, what's important, what do they really need. A friend asked me, what do you want for Christmas? I'm looking around right now and I'm thinking, I don't need more stuff.
100%.
I just want the world to be better. And
Absolutely.
I feel almost like I don't need loads more stuff in my life.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm very lucky that I have, but I just want better things for people.
And it's true. I think that whole kind of conspicuous consumerism, I think that is definitely, under the radar right now.
I feel hugely for the retailers, and as someone who's always loved fashion and loved new clothes, frankly, Christmas editions of magazines and looking at the party dresses, and right now, well, where am I going? Not very far.
It's all about the coats and the scarves and the wellies and anything which is about getting you outdoors, I guess, isn't it? So the thing I always ask people at the end of this, and I know that you're an optimist like me, for you personally, as we continue to have to endure and go through this, as and when that moment comes that we are kind of coming through the other side of this, what are your hopes for yourself, for the world, for brands, whatever way you want to articulate it, really?
I hope that consumerism is moderated, and this need for stuff that isn't sustainably made or ethically made, perhaps, will have changed for all of us, because we've all realised, there is a limit to actually what you need versus what you want, and that I think that the value and the things that we're all missing is the human contact. So it's relationships, and it's the depth and quality of those that are important, not whether you've got the latest trainers or phone. So I hope that's going to be a bit of a reset, and particularly for some of the younger generations who have grown up in a world of consumerism and everything is so immediate. It's there, and I think everyone's now having to learn that you've got to be less selfish. I just hope there's a reframe when we come out of this, and we keep some of that, and we keep understanding where the value is for us and our families and our friends.
Which obviously, despite how terrifying this whole episode has been, if actually that was a byproduct of all of this, then actually there would definitely have been some real positives that would have emerged through it. So I completely agree with you. So thank you so much. As expected, you brought a really lovely, very human perspective to the conversations that I've had thus far. So thank you so much for your time. Be safe, and I will speak to you soon.
Bye.